Welcome to the Maria Heller Show, the Internet's original podcast. Since the year 2000, always ahead of the curve, always on your side. A true warrior for truth and justice, Meria and her guests leave nothing out, and no one is off limits. There is only one truth, the rest is lies. Sit back, enjoy the education with a true daughter of Mother Earth. Sharp New York wit, spiritual knowing, and a very dry sense of humor, Meria will dissect the news and lies to make it all palatable. Education is power. Meria delivers rapid-fire truth like no one else can. Here she is, the mouth that roars, the legendary Meria Heller.
Good morning, world. Meria here, alive and kicking. Welcome to A Breath of Fresh Air. That's what I should call the show. Awaken with Meria and Monnica, with the one and only Monica Sepulveda as my co-host. Good morning, Monica.
Oh, you just woke me up. I'm doing great.
Good, I'm glad.
How are you?
I'm doing okay. Just
great. Well, listeners, we have a treat for you today, don't we, Meria?
Yes, we
Got
do.
a lot of good stuff to talk about. But if you don't mind, Meria, I've got to share a story to your listeners about how absolutely amazing you are. Maybe a year and a half ago, Meria gave me a reading because, we usually trade readings just to see because nobody ever reads for me. And I don't know about you, Meria, but I get readings once every 20 years. So I asked Meria, I said, would you look at my home, my rental where I'm living? And I live on the coast. I have a view of the ocean, and it's really beautiful. I've been here, though, 27 years. Then I asked Meria about it. I was getting some vibes, that it might be time to leave, but I wasn't sure. I didn't want to leave this area, but guess what Meria said? You're leaving the coast. You're going to move inland. And I said, no, I'm not. I'm not going to leave the coast ever. I love it here. And she says, I can. You know how Meria is. She'll just tell you the truth. And, hey, think whatever you want to think, but this is what I got, and I stick to it. So, okay, so now 18 months pass, and all of a sudden my landlord dies. His kids decide they want to liquidate everything. And so I was looking for places here on the coast, couldn't find a thing. I was blocked every place. The place I did find, there was a spirit there that died or killed herself, and she didn't want us there. So we backed out. I have a roommate. We backed out of the deal and decided, no, I've got to go. So all of a sudden, I was talking to David Icke, and he said something to me. He goes, you're going to end up moving a place that is going to totally surprise you. You're not even going to believe it when it happens to you. So all of a sudden, I woke up one morning, I got this message, move to Hollister. Where's Hollister? Inland. But my family, my friends live there. So I thought, my gosh, I'm so lonely here on the coast because everybody that I knew moved or died, but they're gone and I'm alone. And I thought, no, I'd rather live with my family. I'd rather live, not with them, but, in the same neighborhood. It turns out that I found a house in Hollister, inland, about 35 miles inland. It's nice and warm there. And I'm living around the corner from my sister.
Well, I'm really
happy. In a single-story house and no stairs, thank God. And Meria, I just wanted to tell you that you nailed it.
Well,
I was shocked, surprised, but you were right. And so when this woman gives you a reading, pay attention.
Well, you know what I have found through all these years, and because I have integrity, I'm probably not as busy as other people are, is I don't tell people what they want to hear, and I know a lot of what I tell people, a lot of times they'll balk at it. Oh, no, that's not going to happen. That's not something I want to do, blah, blah, blah. But I can't just tell you what you want to hear. I have to tell you what I see. And I specifically remember, telling you, get ready to move. And, you're going to be moving inland. You're going to be leaving the coast. And I knew it wasn't what you wanted to hear.
It wasn't, because when you love the ocean, it's like but you know what? Love is more important than an ocean. I can always come here. It's a 40-minute drive, no biggie. You know what I mean?
Right.
But there's nobody here except one friend across the street. She's married. So I see her twice a month, maybe. So that's not a way you live your life. And then my roommate's never here anyway. So I'm basically just me and my cats and my clients on Skype that I talk to. So I totally understand what you're saying. You cannot lie to people. You tell them the truth. And sometimes I have to say, you're not going to like this, but I have to tell you because I can't lie.
Right.
So, then I explained why it happens. And then, Maria, when you told me this January, you said you're going to be moving in the spring, and I was like, what?
I think I told you May or June, and now here you are moving May 1st.
No, May 31st.
Oh, well, right smack in the middle then.
Yeah, exactly. She wanted me to move June 1st, but I have to vacate here on the 31st. So I'm having movers take all my stuff on the 29th. So I can set up Wi-Fi and all that shit. But anyway, sorry. Didn't mean to.
That's okay. On my show, that's more than okay. Well, it's
yay.
interesting
that's
because...
my personality.
Well, Joe Anthony, who's the astrologer that I do the astrology show with once a month, Joe and I trade at the beginning of the year too.
Nice.
And what was interesting is Joe said to me, your intuition is going to be even sharper than it's already been this whole year.
Great.
And I have noticed that, and it's even on the mundane. Do you know what I mean? I got a call last night from one of my good friends and students and clients in Las Vegas. And she and her husband are both entertainers. And they're animal lovers, so they had 3 dogs and 2 cats.
Love it.
And then her big old dog, German Shepherd, had died a few months back, but she still had 2 dogs and 2 cats. And they travel a lot, so it's a hassle for them. But I had said to her, after I read for her about her business, because I do a lot of business reads, I said to listen, on the mundane side, I know you don't want to hear this. I said, but there's another big dog coming your way, right? So she was all, no, that's not going to happen. We can't have another dog. No one's going to be able to replace Boo, blah, blah, blah. She called me last night and she said, these 2 little girls came to our door. They found this big black Labrador retriever and their parents wouldn't let them keep it. So she said, guess where the retriever is? She showed me a picture.
I love it.
She showed me a picture of the dog on her living room floor. And she said, I remember you even told me this and I argued with you. But what's interesting is this dog inhabits the same spot that the dog that crossed over did, has the same eyes and the same temperament. Now listen, I had a black lab. They're wild beasts, okay? You can't control them. This dog is like a puppy dog. And I said to her, don't you think that that's Boo's spirit that just came back to you in this dog?
Uh-huh.
And people don't realize dogs also live eternally.
Absolutely. Anybody that I love animals, sometimes more than people actually, because they're full of love, and that's what they teach us. And the way some people treat them is horrible. There's karma for that. The thing is that I think there's a special place after this lifetime for people who actually were caregivers of animals. Because it takes a special heart to do that, and I've been taking care of my cats, since I was 22 years old, I've had several, but, and it feels good to rescue them, to make them feel safe and loved, because they appreciate that. They have feelings, and they can see dimensions that we can't see. That's why when you see a cat looking out the window at nothing, they're actually looking at stuff happening.
Oh, yeah, you remember the cat in the movie Ghost?
Oh, yes.
And I told people there's so much spiritual truth in that movie that it's amazing to me. But a lot of times people don't realize, every soul has the ability to jump in and out of other beings whenever the hell they want to, if that being is open. And it's interesting because I had this Bichon she lived 18 years after I rescued her.
Wow.
And she had like human eyes, okay? Yeah. She was like the most psychic dog I ever saw. I loved that dog so much. My daughter and my granddaughter were just crying over her again last week. But what's interesting is my chiropractor here, I don't know what the breed is, but it just looks like a giant size of the Bichon. And Emma doesn't go to anybody because she was one of these dogs used for breeding, so she was very abused. But it's interesting because I went there the other day, and at first she was barking when I was by the gate, but as soon as I walked in and I'm talking to my chiropractor, Emma just threw herself down on her back and wanted me to rub her belly.
That's vulnerable. That means that they trust you.
Right. Well, I am a Reiki master, and of course animals recognize that too. But while I'm talking to my girlfriend, the dog literally stood up on her hind legs with her front paws on me. And when I look at her, I know that that energy of my dog is in that dog for the time I'm there. So I'll always look at Emma and I'll call her.
I totally believe that.
Right, I'll call her Crystal whenever I see her because it's the similarity is unbelievable. And my girlfriend, the chiropractor, she was like, "Oh my God, she never takes to anybody." And I was like, "Liz, who are you talking to?" You know,
Maria.
Right.
Listen, we could talk all day about these stories because they do occupy other animals, especially when they pass. They'll come through another animal to let you know that they're okay, and it's happened to me as well. So anyway, I guess we should do a show, huh?
Well, aren't we? I thought we were.
Yeah, we're teaching people about dogs. And the Bible, you know what? Because I connect with dogs as well, intuitively, and I do talk to them. And after they pass and while they're alive. And one of my friends, Amelia Kincaid, who is an animal communicator, she's probably the best in the world. She's a friend of mine, and she taught me how to do it. It's not hard. It's not hard at all. And I teach my clients if they want to learn how to communicate with their pets, because they communicate in pictures.
Oh, absolutely.
But they also, if you're an empath, they will also send you their feelings.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And you were talking about empathy earlier, you know, when we were talking.
Right. Well, that's another topic, but, you know, a lot of people listening to the show, of course, everybody loves their animals, okay? And me, I love all animals, so it's not a particular thing. But I remember even in the movie Horse Whisperer, where you saw, and that guy's legit, all right? Mm-hmm. And at one point in the Horse Whisperer, I watched him treat the horse, and I was astounded. I said, wow, he's given that horse Reiki. It was clear as bell to me. And it's interesting because I have 2 of my Reiki students here in Arizona that choose to only work on animals. One, her specialty is she works with horses, and every horse ranch calls her to come and work on their horses. And you can set up, it's almost like setting up a mind meld with the animal. Uh-huh. But they also know that it's something you can trust. You know, back in the day when I had my medicine wheel on the open desert, I would do medicine wheel ceremonies, whether it was a new moon, full moon, whatever. And sometimes we get 50, 60 people out in the middle of the desert because that's where I lived. And as soon as I would start lighting some sage, all the coyotes would start howling.
Wow, that's cool.
And everybody sitting there thought it was like special sound effects or something, right?
Yeah, you've got a record player in the background.
Right. But I said, you know, one thing I learned from Sun Bear is the animal kingdom always recognizes when a 2-legged is doing something sacred, and they appreciate it.
I love that. That's wonderful.
You know,
that makes me feel warm.
Yes, and it should. It was pretty awesome, I have to tell you. I was like, wow, this is better than if I try to put in some music, right?
Yeah.
But, you know, that was a post I put up today about our interconnectedness to nature. Mm-hmm. You know, and, you know, there are no neurotic birds, and there's a reason for it, you know. I was sitting out front this morning. I had this hummingbird almost slam right into my face, but it just kept buzzing around my head. And, you know, to me, and a lot of people, symbology again, the hummingbird is representative of joy.
You bet.
So if you get a visit by a hummingbird, you need to consider yourself a lucky person.
Oh, yeah. You know, I don't know if you guys are into feng shui or not, but I am. Mm-hmm. And I learned from a Chinese woman and who's on Oprah's show. And if you put a hummingbird feeder on the south side outside, that the bird is the symbolism, the animal for that particular compass point. And you have the fountain in the north side, and that's for career. But when you have both of them together, it really does bring about a lot of really good energy and wonderful opportunities.
Oh, absolutely.
So I always tell people, put a bird feeder for a hummingbird on the south side of your home outside.
And don't put any dye in the water. Okay, they don't need it to be red.
The what? Oh, God.
Right. The other, well, you know what was really weird? The past 2 summers, the hummingbirds, I'm sure I posted pictures when it was happening. But of all the places on my property for the hummingbirds to make their little nest, they made one on one of my wind chimes. And I was like, how could you build a nest on that skinny little wind chime? And one right in my planter, okay?
How weird.
And it was crazy because every now and then my friend and I, we would take it down just to look at what was in the nest. We never touched it, okay? And then we saw the little eggs and whatnot, and we put it back. Don't you know that it just happened? I mean, what were the chances, okay? One day I'm sitting out front, the second those eggs hatched, and I watched the birds fly out of the nest.
Wow, that's cool.
I was like, what are the chances of this? But what I have found out is they don't reuse the same nest. So once they've had their season in it, I usually will get rid of the nest and then wait and see where they're going to nest next year.
Uh-huh. Well, that's really cool. I've never seen that.
Well, I mean, what were the chances? I was like, oh my God, too bad I don't have my camera right here. But it didn't take long for them to go. But what was interesting, you know, they're very similar to the cactus wren. And I'm trying to think of the name. Oh, quail. We had a lot of quail in our backyard. And when the mother lays her eggs, she doesn't leave that nest at all, ever. And we would watch it every day, and I was like, God, that bird is still sitting there. But she will leave.
She doesn't go after worms or anything?
She probably went for some food, but probably not when I was, aware of her.
Yeah.
But what was amazing is how protective these birds are of their babies. You know, and then you see the natural instinct that, nobody had to teach them how to fly out of that nest. They're tiny little critters, and there they are.
Wow, that's magical.
I know, it's kind of...
I love that. What a gift for you.
I know. Well, my mother used to say I was for the birds, so maybe she was right. But, years ago, I'm sure you read the book by Ken Carey, Return of the Bird Tribes.
I actually did not.
Oh, well, it's a magnificent book. I still recommend it. And God, I must have read it 35 years ago. But what was interesting is he tells you in the beginning of the book to read the book outdoors. And it's such a beautiful spiritual experience to read that. And if you're a member of the bird tribes, you're going to recognize it reading that book. Mm-hmm. But, I don't know why we're on this tangent, but I guess the universe wanted us to talk about the four-leggeds and the creatures out there.
It was time. We hadn't covered that before, and we go with the flow.
Well, I've done shows in the past about animals have souls, those types of things. You will see your pets again, different books. Actually, I have 2 sitting on my desk now I haven't even opened in the similar topics. But I think that a lot of times when people are having a rough time, it's because they've disconnected from nature.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And
I love to, one thing I learned recently, and not recently actually, but one thing I read about again that I'd known before, and I love it when I hear stories because, you and I have been reading stuff since, it was really hard to get books back in the day, but back in the 60s and 70s, I used to buy books that were written in the 1920s, and they were very hard to find, but I'd find them in weird places. I think that books find us. But I remember, I used to love to hug this tree, and I called it Friend. And I'd read that you have to ask permission of the tree before you even hug it or talk to it because it's so wary because it doesn't trust humans because they've been chopped down and hurt, and they can't move. They can't move away. They're still, so they have to take it. And so what you have to do is ask permission of a tree if you can hug it and send a little prayer for it or send it love from your heart, and then you'll hear in your mind, it'll tell you yes.
Right.
If it likes you. Then you hug it. But you have to stand with your back against the tree, and it'll give you all its energies, and then you hug it goodbye. But you have to ask permission, and I thought, how respectful is that?
Right.
People don't realize it. They are afraid of humans because of what humans do to them.
Well, how could you blame them? The Native Americans called them the standing ones. And it's interesting you brought that up, Years ago, I was up in, I think it was Prescott, Arizona, and we were walking through this beautiful forest there. And I just saw this one tree, and I just knew this is the place to meditate. And I was married at the time, so I told my husband literally to go take a hike. And because this tree was calling to me, so I sat against the tree on the floor, and I put myself into a light meditation. And, here I was expecting a pleasant experience, which did not turn out to be that way. What they showed me, and it was like watching a movie, Monica, the slaughter that had happened right there. the slaughter of the Native Americans, this and that. And what they told me was, we need you to write about what happened here. We can't speak, but you can.
Wow.
And I was crying like a baby. I mean, it was a pretty horrific scene to have to see. And, when I was done, I always left an offering. There's a way to work in a sacred manner with nature. And I was still, crying. And then my husband came back and he's like, what's going on? And I told him. And I remember he looked at me and he said, you're either totally insane or one of the best mediums on the planet. And I did compose the article, and at that time there was a great New Age magazine called Connecting Link. And I took pictures, and of course I got published. And, for me, I always felt like I'm the voice for the voiceless, whether it's, discarded humans, whether it's animals that can't speak for their own rights, whether it's nature. But interesting when you said, how to properly approach that tree. I was with my granddaughter, one of my granddaughters, and I took her and her boyfriend to this beautiful spot called Rio Verde. And it's a little river running through it and river rocks and all this. And she went to pick up a rock. And she showed me the rock. And I said, Jess, you can't take that without leaving something in exchange. Nothing good will come to that if you don't. Well, Grandma, what am I going to leave? I said, well, you could leave a coin. You could leave something personal. I said, and Native Americans used to just leave a piece, a strand of their hair if they had nothing else with them in exchange. And, she learned something that day. And, of course, she left some of her hair there because she didn't have anything else she could think of. But when you take something that's not in a sacred manner, Sedona, Hawaii, they get a lot of rocks mailed back to them anonymously in the mail every year. Because people that take not in a sacred manner, nothing good happens to them. And then eventually they figure out, it must be the rock. So they get a lot of rocks sent back to their post office pretty much every year.
Wow, that's interesting. So I brought back some rocks from a foreign country. It's called Poland, and the place was Auschwitz.
Well, I hope you cleared it.
Isn't that interesting?
Right.
And I have it right in my bedroom. I have several of them where Josef Mengele actually condemned people to the gas chambers or to go to work. I was sitting at Auschwitz-Birkenau, and I was sitting there, and I knew that this was the spot, so I picked up some soil and some little pebbles, and I brought them home with me. I have them in my bedroom because one of the things that it does when you go there is that you learn that whatever's happening in your life, nothing is worse than what happened there. Right. And it gives me perspective, when I go through my challenges. I just pick up those that little pouch of rocks that says Auschwitz on it, because it was my name, it was my tag, that I was on a tour. And I just look at those rocks and I bless it and I thank it for giving me the gift of perspective. So it just reminded me of that story when you were mentioning rocks, because I'm looking at them right now.
Right.
So people go, ooh, how could you do that? I go, no, it's a blessing.
Look, even if somebody buys me a gift of, some kind of gemstone or jewelry with rocks in it or whatever, even a special rock, I will always clear that before I use it or even think about putting it inside my medicine wheel.
Yeah.
And,
mine are...
It's not that hard to clear, if you have sacred items or whatnot, or even if you're buying an antique dresser and bringing it to your home. You've got to know how to clear the energy off of that. What do you usually do? What's your easy clearing fix?
Well, I don't usually buy things like that, ever. I don't. I like to get new things, but this is the only thing that's got history in it. And because I'm a psychometrist, I can read items.
Right.
So when I was reading these pebbles, they were just saying, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Right.
And they said, you were here in a past life. And I said, I know it.
Right. Well,
so this time I got out of there, instead of dying there, this time I was able to cross those gates. It's that great big huge brick that you saw in Schindler's List, the opening where the train goes through the middle.
Right.
That's where I was.
Wow.
And this time I got out.
Right. Well, since I've been a teacher for so many years, a lot of my students will bring me gifts that they think I want. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. But most of the time, the best way to clear it is just, put it on your windowsill. Give it 24 hours, sunshine and moonshine.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
You can Reiki them. You can smudge them. You can take them and put them in your medicine wheel overnight. But to just accept something where you don't know its origin is kind of like that place you wanted to rent until you found out somebody committed suicide there and didn't want you there.
Oh, no. I thought that they were going to pull my hair because that's what they typically have done in the past. When I'm in a place that's haunted, they pull the back of my hair. I'm like, ow.
Well, one of the other things I wanted to touch on with you, and we talked a little bit about it before the show, and it just happens I have over 3,000 likes on it already on Facebook. I put it up 2 days ago. It is everything I experience hits me deep, raw, and intense. As an empath, I feel the energy of myself and others. As I age, this ability only grows deeper and stranger. And so many people identified with that and wanted to know, because I had put, if this is you, you can learn how to control it.
Yeah.
And immediately people wanted to know, how can I do that? What can we do?
Yeah, that's pretty easy. There's a lot of people that take on, especially when they're sensitive, overly sensitive, they take on the emotions of other people, and they don't even know that that's happening. They come home, they feel bad, and they don't know why they feel bad. What happened that day that they feel horrible? Well, they actually sucked in someone else's stuff, because people that are going through pain, animals, speaking of animals, they're able to take our pain and then they remove it from us and they send back neutral energy with love. So this is why a lot of times pets are with you when you're sick, because they're absorbing that any kind of negative energy or low vibrational frequency. And but if you do that too many times to an animal, it usually ends up with cancer and it dies because it can't take it. So we have a responsibility to make sure that we keep ourselves healthy and whole. What I do with empathy is I was realizing I was too open. And of all people that told me how to do this, after John Lennon died, I went to a medium, and there was a gathering. There was probably like 50 people there, and I knew I was going to get a message from him. He was one of my favorites, and I said, if it's really you, I want you to say, life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans. And so the medium, she looked at me, she goes, here's a message for you, and it says, life is what happens to you while you're busy making other plans. I said, I knew it. So he's LinkedIn. He told me that my empathetic level was too high. He wanted me to put a hat on my head or to visualize it so that I'm not so open, even telepathically, and also to surround myself in a mirror facing outwards, so if anything comes to me, it gets ricocheted back, but you send it back with love. And I said, thank you. So I thought, of all people to teach me some things about this, it's John Lennon, the Beatles.
Right.
So I thought that was kind of cool, So what I tell people to do is that you have to, I use empathy only when I tune in for people's health, because I want to feel what they're feeling.
Right.
I can go in their body and I can feel it. But then immediately I shut it down. And the way he told me to do it is to actually visualize that you have a dimmer switch inside of you. When you turn it all the way up to 10, then you're really, really strong. Your empathy levels are really strong. Then as soon as you pick up what you need, you turn it all the way back down like a dial, like a light dial, and bring it all the way back down to 1 so that you click it and shut it off. And you know what? That technique really, really works.
Yeah, that's
a great idea. A lot of people that are intuitive and empathetic, they start receiving all kinds of nocturnal visitations. And you have to set your boundaries here and say, no.
Right, right.
When you feel the empathy of this planet that's going through a lot right now, and I think on the other side of it, it's going to end up being a good thing, because it made people get up, move their butts, get out and march, protest. It woke a lot of people up, especially the millennials. I love when they say, hey, we're going to be 18. There's 3 million of us that are going to be 18 in the next election. Watch your seat. You won't be reelected. I just start laughing. And so I go, right on. So we're becoming more proactive now instead of just sitting around our butts taking things for granted. I think we were stuck for too long. I think we needed this shake-up to happen in order for us to get back to our spiritual connection, to come up with new ideas, because I think we're best when we're under adversity. And when it comes to empathy, we have to be able to feel what's going on this planet, but then we have to change our own frequency in order to change that frequency. One person at a time takes care of that. You can receive the data of what's going on, but you cannot just sit with it and feel sorry for yourself. Or, I always say, get off the cross and leave the woods, or get off the pity pot.
Right.
And when you do that, you shift the planet. Shift one person at a time. We're all powerful. Shift your own energy and raise it to the highest frequency possible, and then you're going to be able to do something about the pain that's going on out there.
Well said, well put. I always tell people when they tell me they feel like crap after being out and about in the world. And I say, well, that's because you've been walking around with your chakras hanging out.
Your bloom is a showing.
Right. But the truth of the matter is, right, people don't think about they're wide open when they're out there, sucking up all the fear, the pain, the anxiety, whatever. Because they're not closing that down and protecting themselves. Mm-hmm. And I think that a lot of the, especially New Age television shows, God, I'm trying to think. The Medium, I think that was the one with the Arquette in it. There was another one where the woman was I don't know, ghost something or other. But one thing that always struck me is, as soon as a ghost showed up, they dropped their entire lives to do whatever the ghost's bidding was. And I couldn't get over that, because that is not being in control. It's almost like being possessed, It's if they want you to do their bidding, it should be on your time, and you need to learn how to control that, not just drop your husband, your family, your kids, everything, and go in pursuit of, whatever the ghost wants.
Crazy. That's nuts. That doesn't even make sense to me why they do that. But there's a lot of people out there, you guys, even on television, who don't know what the fuck they're doing. They don't. And I've seen them being interviewed off the show, because the shows are well edited, very well edited. So you only see the good stuff. But when I see them interviewed, there's one I'm thinking in particular, which I won't mention, that when I see her being interviewed on talk shows and she does readings, she's completely off every single time. I've seen it 3 times, different shows, completely off, not even on target, not even close. So I'm thinking, okay, her show is well edited.
Right. Well, a lot of times, these TV psychics do that. They use the same methods and shills like the preachers. The preachers with their tent scams going around the country. And it's more guesswork than anything else. And to me, if you can't get direction in your life from a reading, why bother?
And one thing I want to put out there, too, is if you go see a medium, because that's most of my work, so I'm very aware of what's going on out there, a medium does not ask you questions. She gives you information, and she tells you information from whoever's coming through from your family who's passed on. And I noticed that this one on TV asked a lot of questions. It's just like, well, did your mother die? Okay, I see her, and she's coming through it. You know what I mean? It's like, no, your mother's here. And you're not supposed to know whether she died or not. You just say, your mother's here, and they'll say, yeah, she's passed on. But these people ask a lot of questions, like fishing, fishing.
Right.
And that bothers me a lot, and it shouldn't. But, it's like, I don't want to be jujgmental, but sometimes when you do this kind of work all your life, you get bugged by the people that end up influencing people on this planet who think, oh, she's so good.
Right.
Well, if you only knew. And I've met some people who've been on these shows before, and they're the worst.
But hey, it's a show, and that's their excuse. Monty, we have to take a short break. Stay with us. Okay. Monica and I will be right back. RIA.net. You are the only thing that supports this show. There's no corporate control, and there's plenty of education on site. So please consider either a subscription or a donation to keep the work going. There are too many alternative voices out there that are being silenced because of lack of support. So if you don't want MSM to be the only mind-controlling news out there, please consider supporting the people that support you and help us all save something for the future for our children. Thank you so much.